Welcome to the GrowthShifters Podcast, where we talk to trailblazers who have shifted their perspective to grow their business and themselves. We're recording this episode on a Monday, and I was just telling our guests that I've been excited about this all weekend. I've got designer, creative entrepreneur, and founder of SweetFolk Studio, Emily Gillis, on the show. Emily is an art director, UI designer, and creative strategist with over a decade of experience designing brands, websites, and launching product designs for emerging technologies. Based in Toronto, she graduated from OCAD-U in 2013, and she's worked to combine fine art concepts with the exacting principles of design in all of her work. She has done design work for clients ranging from early startups to Fortune 500 companies. Emily, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Liz. I'm so excited to be here.
On the show, what I really like to focus on is, I guess you could call it the light bulb moments or the aha moments that really just make us change direction, whether it's like leveling up what we're already doing or just pivoting entirely to do something new. And in our conversation beforehand, like you definitely have that. But if you could take us through the path that you were on from when you graduated from OCAD-U up to that point of making that change.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting. I went to school and I focused on fine art and painting, and I loved that, and I still love that, and it's like a huge part of my life.
Mhm.
Like I have like a million paintings on my wall behind me. It's never ended up being, as of yet, like I feel like it still will at some point, but it's never ended up being my like main thing, like my money maker. Right out of university, I fell into working with tech startups. Like I graduated sort of in the middle of the startup boom, kind of towards the end of it. And so everybody had like a new idea for something new. And so from there, like I had that experience, and then I went into another one and so forth. And towards the end of last year, I'd been interspersing that experience with like freelancing and working with small businesses, and I have a lot of friends in the city that have small businesses. So I was working on brands and websites for like photographers and caterers and restaurants and all those kinds of things, which I loved. But
Mhm.
I'd always come back to the technology piece, which I also love. Like I think a lot of like doctors and scientists have an art practice or they're musical or whatever. Like you all kind of use
Yeah.
that same side of your brain. And I think a lot of artists also have like a technical side or like a mathematic leaning or whatever. So I really, I love combining the creativity part and the technology part, and but I was never quite working intentionally with the groups of people that I wanted to. I did meet so many amazing and wonderful people and work with some really cool businesses. But towards the end of last year, I had an opportunity to really refocus and become intentional about who I wanted to work with. And I was like, I guess my aha moment was, well, now I have 10 years of experience in technology. I have all of this, like, I think when we were talking last week, I was sort of like, this is something that is easy for me because I understand it now and I know it. It's not inherently complicated, but for somebody that doesn't have that experience of technology, it is complicated. So I was like, this is a perfect opportunity to work with the people that I love working with, like the other creative small businesses, the people that have followed their passion and are making a living based off of that, and being able to kind of bring some of the sort of tech tools that I've, been exposed to and helped to build into making their lives easier. So that was my aha moment. And now with SweetFolk Studio, I'm really leaning into building beautiful brands and websites for those creative businesses. And like I have the world's best clients. I'm so excited to keep moving forward with it.
Yeah, I looked at your blog and your Instagram and the stuff you're designing. It's incredible. But one thing that I took pause to think about actually was on your blog, you talk about the importance of making bad art and like challenging yourself to make bad art in order to like let that flow.
Yep.
So I'm wondering how for you as a creative, I keep using the term creative entrepreneur, but how does that sort of idea around just allowing yourself to do things that are imperfect, allowing yourself to try things, how does that translate into business
Oh
for
my
you?
gosh. This is like if I were to write a book, it would be about this. I
Okay.
love this concept. Like, I mean, I've been in the process of building multiple businesses this year, and it's so easy to get into the weeds. And then I think at the same
Yes.
time, when you're making anything new or you buy a new notebook, even if you're a writer, a musician, or whatever, right? It's like I have like what one day of recording time, like I need to use it perfectly. Like how paralyzing is that, right? So
It's very paralyzing.
100%. And it's like, I have bought, like, I've started buying only really cheap sketchbooks, like, and not thick ones, like
Uh,
40 page, like little blank page paper books, because I'm like, I need it to be not precious so I can create from a place of not trying to be precious, you know? So as it relates to business, like, it's the way of getting out of the weeds for me. And I've been speaking to a lot of other creatives who've kind of agreed with it that, like, even if you're just taking 5 minutes to, like, do a dance, like, to a pop song in secret in your house where no one can see you, or make, like, a really like 5-year-old inspired like drawing, it takes you out of your ego and allows you
mhm.
to recenter. At least for me, like I find when I'm able to do that, when I'm able to like kind of intentionally make the time to do that, and I think a larger part of making bad art is remembering to make bad art,
Right.
and getting familiar enough with yourself to know when you need to make bad art. And it's kind of a practice in itself, to and I find if it's like the last thing I want to do, it's probably the first thing I need to do is just like do something silly, like and like if you're stuck on like a logic problem or something, going for a walk and moving your body is like just as effective. But if you're at the start of something or you're like in the weeds with a creative project or even like, just the feeling overwhelmed by something that you're starting to build, like taking yourself out of the space of taking yourself too seriously is kind of it's one of my favorite tools.
That's amazing. And I think too, as people who are like, we're trying to make it happen for ourselves, that, we can get kind of stuck in the whole, okay, I don't know if this proposal is exactly right. Let me go over it 10 times and now it's 2 in the morning and we're trying to figure out, I, I can't even look at this anymore. Is my client going to be happy?
Yeah,
And it I think particularly for those of us with, any kind of creative leaning in our work, that we can then find that the things that led us to become business owners then become the things that suck all the joy out of it and that we get stuck. And
absolutely.
I think that yeah, just taking those moments for taking those dance breaks and get changing up your scenery for a bit if you're trying to work out a problem is just so important.
It's so important. It
Mm,
reminds you why you're doing it in the first place in a lot of ways. And yeah, like we were talking about 3D modeling and the 3D animation program, like that
yeah.
program was you have to like melt down your brain and then like rebuild it again. Like it's a wild thing to try and understand. And it was like the middle of COVID, like middle of
Mhm.
2020 when I was starting that program. And I think there's like a path around my little block of steps because of how many times like, I would be so curious. I'm sure somebody's done a study on like what actually happens with your brain when you do that, but it's the same as like
Yeah.
just allowing yourself to like close the book and come back the next day with fresh eyes. Like it sounds
Hmm.
cliche, but it like I always find sort of a renewed perspective and a renewed appreciation for what was good that I probably would have like overworked and, you know, like messed up. Like, when in
Mm-hmm.
a painting, the most important part of creating a painting is knowing when to stop. Um, so
That's interesting insight.
yeah.
I think that probably goes for just about anything is we really have to know when to stop.
Like, well, yeah, right? Because yeah, it pretty quickly looks like nothing if you keep going. So
And I keep referencing your blog because I was just so taken with it, and I'll make sure to include a link to it wherever I publish this podcast. But you were talking in it about the importance of having routines and habits as, I guess, kind of guardrails for your creativity. And I was wondering if you could expand a bit on that.
yeah, I find it really important to create systems for myself. And they need to be very like lightweight systems. My rule whenever I'm talking to a client or a friend or like a mentee is like you need to be able to do it on your worst day. Um,
Right.
like and if it's more complicated than that, it's not going to be sustainable. And it's really just like creating a container for yourself to do the thing. Even if the only thing you do that day is a 5 minute like bad art exercise, like you've won, setting
Hmm.
like creating really realistic and not like underestimating yourself, but creating really realistic success metrics is really important. I'll have to revisit the blog to know exactly what I was referencing in that moment because I think it was a few weeks ago. But effectively,
Hmm.
like I still think about it all the time. Like, journaling, creating a journaling habit, um, has been one of the more like transformative things that I've started in the last year. And it's not journaling to be, it's more along the lines of like the morning pages, like the Artist's Way morning pages. Um, just stream of consciousness, doesn't have to be anything at all. It can be like Bart Simpson on the chalkboard. I hate journaling over and over again. As long as the sort of amount of pages are done, then it's like,
Hmm.
you're winning. Um, so yeah, breaking down whatever it is that you're trying to do into the smallest possible repeatable element, is is like the easiest way to consistency, and that's the easiest way to build like a body of anything, right? Like, um, I read Atomic Habits, like
Oh,
going on,
yes,
like
yes.
I think probably whenever it came out, maybe a couple years after it came out, and a lot of those methods have stuck with me. Although I've been working with a coach recently who was like, you know what, 1% every day is a lot. She's like, in the long run, trying to
Yes.
get 1% better at everything or anything every day, that's a huge amount of percentage when you consider,
Hmm.
you know. So yeah, going even more atomic than than that. Yeah,
And
that's
so, how have you found coaching?
mm, I love it. It's
Hmm.
an incredible opportunity to like the I've done both private and semi-private coaching groups. Um, My coach is Casey Von Neumann. She is at Rulerless Casey on TikTok and Substack, I believe. She's incredible. She's all about creative productivity. I've only been working with her for the last like 2 months or so, but she came highly recommended from the co-founder of a company I was working with for many years and a good friend of mine. So it's a like beautiful opportunity to work with other people that are similarly minded about small business and creativity and all of those good things, even though we're in completely separate industries. Like it's a group of about, I think, 7 people that I'm in with right now, and there's musicians, therapists, students. Like I think she runs it quarterly. It's incredible.
Hmm.
So, yeah, I love it. It's a good opportunity for community, and I think whether or not I know that cozy networking is becoming a bit more of like a term I'm hearing. And there's a lot of smaller like forums like Discourse and little Facebook groups that are just like really getting niche about the types of people and the concepts that are being discussed, and that's amazing. It's a really good way to get deep and make like-minded
Mm-hmm.
friends. Yeah.
So I've never heard the term cozy networking before, but I kind of like it. Like,
Yeah.
so it's just what you were saying. It's like really niched down.
Yeah,
Uh, yeah.
exactly. Like I'm in a group. I was working through the Artist's Way for the last couple months, and a type designer that I love, also happened to be working through it, and she started a circle. Like there's a platform called Circle where you just kind of start a small free group of
Oh,
people. So
neat.
I have
Okay.
a group of people from there, and then another one that's like specifically creative professionals from all over the world. Like there's people from Japan, Brazil, UK, like everywhere that are all different flavors of creative that are like their one kind of singular thing in common is that they're freelancing
Mhm.
or holding their own business. Um, and people can, I think being on Instagram or being on TikTok or whatever your social media platform of choice is, Coach Casey,
Mhm.
was referring to it as like kind of throwing out your shingle, whereas something like Substack is like inviting people into your living room, which
I
I
like that. I
love,
like that.
right?
Yeah.
So I've been really enjoying that, and this cozy networking is like a beautiful way to, it sort of feels like the internet of like 15, 20 years ago, when you're intentionally discovering those groups. So I love that.
Yeah, I think we need more of that in this day and age. It's it's funny how we talk about the internet of the early days as being like the Wild West, but it feels almost more like that now, with everyone just putting out all of this, to throw the term, negative vibes, that just everything is it seems is about, trying to grab your attention, trying with this clickbait, trying to, manipulate your emotions. And I mean, some of the work that I do involves talking about radicalization and how people are um, persuaded into
Right.
these echo chambers. And it's kind of nice, like, actually no, it's really nice to know that there are some positive spaces out there online, that there's
Yeah.
actually maybe positive echo chambers where we actually build each other up instead of sharing toxic ideas or tearing down somebody else. It's good to know the internet's being used for good still.
Oh, absolutely. I totally agree with you. And yeah, I think you know, you're absolutely right that it's just a different kind of Wild West now than it
Yeah.
was like, 20 years ago, or like when I was making my first little websites on like Pixo in 2004 or whatever it was. Um,
Hmm.
you the internet was like absolutely crazy. Like it was like a bit of a subculture just in itself to be on there because most businesses
Yeah.
didn't even have a website. It was really just people that were interested in um trying new things. I was reading Seth Godin's This Is Marketing last night, and he speaks about early adopters versus adapters, I think is
Hmm.
the difference. And the early adopters, he's like, you can't really trust them. They're never going to stick around. They're always going to be moving on to the next thing, whereas the adapters
Right.
are going to be the ones that like take something and embody it and make it their main deal. And yeah, I find with the internet now you have to go deeper, more intentionally because it's gotten so wide
Yeah.
um on the upper levels, and yeah. So and it's also exhausting. Like I think that's another area of guardrails that we were referring to earlier is just like
Hmm.
intentionally not uh engaging in whatever it is that you are specifically are trying to do because it's so quick to mirror whatever it is that you're trying to do, that it takes the steam out of anything, it takes your idea and shows you 1,000 other people doing it, but nobody's ever going to do your idea the exact same way as you would. So it is worth following through.
Yeah, I like that idea that you shared about on the blog about how to just in the when you have an idea in the early stages, just to limit your exposure as much as you
Right.
can so that you can stay excited and you don't feel, that sense of like, okay, it's all been done. What could I possibly add?
Oh,
Um,
exactly. Right. And, and I think especially when we have, AI tools and ChatGPT and all of that, like sort of at our fingertips, we can really self-sabotage by using that to, like, I think our own motivation comes from, or at least for me, I guess I shouldn't speak for everybody, but I find
Mhm,
when I'm treating the like learning process and the discovery process as some of the fuel of motivation and pushing me forward, like that really is that's kind of what keeps me moving across. Like I made a little illustration in one of my blog posts, and maybe it had been the guardrails one of like just kind of soaring over this sort of chasm of opportunity to just drop the thing and forget about it. And we've all picked up, a new hobby or a project or a great idea for a book or whatever and dropped it after it stopped being exciting. And so I think we really need
mhm,
to be intentional about holding that excitement precious.
mhm. And so you brought up like a lot of things that I actually wanted to touch on. I'm going to try to formulate this into like one cohesive question, which
Okay.
may or may not come out as such. But I'm curious how when you're consulting with clients, and I know that with SweetFolk that you're focusing on people who are not um, as in the tech space, they're not as tech savvy, and that they need the tools, they need the support. So how do you kind of advise them or coach them to, I guess, stay focused, first of all, and also just not get lost in the weeds? Like if there's, say your client, you talked about working with hair salons. If you're working with a new startup hair salon and they're like, oh my God, there's 200,000 hair salons in the greater Toronto area. What could I possibly do? Like, I guess what I'm trying to ask is how do you get them past the paralysis without having them lose what is originally brought them to their entrepreneurial space in the first place?
With hair salons who I love working with and I'm, working with some wonderful clients in that industry to help like build tools for people in that industry. And I'm finding that they're very aesthetically inclined and visual people and extremely technical. And like it's interesting to try and translate that to like a brand and to a website because there's so much there to pull from. So I start with this guide. It leans into, what makes you different? Who is your ideal client? Like, why do they come to you? What is your, like, what if there were a series of words that you wanted people to associate with your brand, what would that be? And it's like,
Mhm.
short answer, long answer, multiple choice. A lot of the questions are kind of repetitive because I'm like, I know from taking a million personality quizzes in my life that like sometimes your answer towards the bottom is different than it would have been at the top.
Yes, that's true.
But I find it is like a good self-reflection exercise. And I've heard that feedback from a lot of my clients that like, you know what, I come out of doing this exercise clearer than when I went in. And from there, we start to build um, the sort of bones of what their look and feel is going to be. And it may be entirely different from what they were, not what they like or what they asked me for, but what they were imagining. I always ask my clients to come to me with the problem as opposed to with the solution. And I find it's like
I
very
like that.
easy. Yeah, it
Yeah.
can be very easy to come to me with I think the logo should be bigger, right? And it's like,
Hmm.
okay, it's not necessarily, and like every graphic designer that listens to this is probably laughing right now because you've heard it a million times. Everybody wants the logo to be bigger, but it's not always
Yeah.
that the logo needs to be bigger. It just needs to be, maybe it needs to be more prominent. In the case of one of my clients, it was just that the O needed to be like the hole in the O needed to be a little bit smaller. And he was like, oh my God, it's perfect. This is exactly what needed to happen. Um,
Hmm.
so I find, the question, what don't you like, is much more enlightening than what do you like.
Hmm.
And doing the work of figuring out what the problem is, as opposed to trying to do my job of discovering the solution, is a lot more clarifying. Um, so I think that's like a long-winded answer to your question,
Yeah.
but hopefully that's helpful. Yeah.
Yes, it's very helpful. I love that idea because I of coming with the problem instead of the solution, because I find myself doing that too. That I was actually consulting with somebody this morning about potentially getting some additional support. And I was saying, well, I think I need this, I think I need that, it needs to be like this and that. And she was pushing back on me. And I was like, well, what's, and then I realized, no, I'm just talking to you. Like, no, I was trying to come to her with solutions instead of just saying, like, I am stuck here.
Yep.
I want to get there, but I am stuck here and I need your help. And
Right.
like let her actually do her job.
Right, and it's totally, especially if you're a business owner yourself, you're like, well,
Yeah.
I'm used to doing everything myself, and I know how to
Yeah.
solve my own problems in a way that's like good enough to keep me functioning. But one of the things that I'm really trying to address is like, okay, so how do we like take the things that are good enough or that you did once and said you'd fix it later and like make that actually like something that continually works for you that you don't have to keep in the back of your mind as like, oh, I don't love that, but like
Mhm.
I'm gonna like excuse it. Like we're gonna come back to
Yeah.
it. So that is like such a powerful thing to be able to kind of have that recognition and it's also like I love the um like I don't even know what the word is that I'm looking for, but I love the clients that do want to try and solve their own problems. It is, you know, it's a journey. It's part of the journey, and I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I hate to use the term circle back, but I'm going to do it. Um, we circle back to when you had mentioned ChatGPT and AI tools. How do you guide your clients around how best to use those? Because on the one hand, they can be extremely helpful and they can help you save time. But on the other hand, if you use them the wrong way,
Hmm.
um, depending on what type of business you have, it can perhaps cross ethical boundaries. It can just make what you're doing not sound like you, or, you just kind of like lose that human touch. And with all of these tools just evolving so quickly in the marketplace right now, like where do you strike that balance?
Yeah, like that's probably the hottest topic out there right now.
I think so.
Yeah. And it's something that I am like, there's areas that I've been able to draw like fairly clear boundaries around for myself. There's areas where my opinion shifts daily. Um Having been in technology for so long, like I know that the life cycle is so in its infancy right now. And it's like if it were up to me, I don't think that we're ready for this kind of AI at the moment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, I think there's so many other areas that technology should have advanced in first. And I think, it's such an important tool for scientists and for, you know, like improving green technology and all of that. But at the moment, like we're not at a place where my big problem with ChatGPT is it is like the ultimate echo chamber, like funhouse mirror. And like you said, like it's super powerful. I've used it to help to clarify some of my ideas, but you have to go in with the understanding that it is going to agree with you. Like unless you give it a specific prompt and you have to reassert that prompt and reassert it, over the span of conversations, it's not going to really necessarily remember to give you divergent opinions. It's just going to yes and you into oblivion. So, overpainting the painting, as we were talking about,
Right.
like that, it's so quick to do that. I haven't had too much of the experience of my clients really using ChatGPT too much, in a way that I've had to kind of set any sort of boundary. I mean, I think everybody that I've worked with thus far has been pretty responsible with it and are kind of erring on the side of
Mhm.
like, I don't know that this is like I'm a little nervous about it, basically.
Mhm.
I've had clients come to me and be like, "This is a logo that I made with ChatGPT. Can you make me a better one?" Which I'm like, absolutely. You know what? Like for sure. Love that. I've loved
Yeah.
that so much more than you launching your business with a logo created by ChatGPT. I'm not overly worried about the creative industry as much in this moment. I think it's going to be really difficult for juniors to be having the same kind of early career experience that I had.
Mhm.
Um, because those systems are going to be really taken over by AI. I think technology is in for a bit of a struggle, um, developers and
Mhm.
um, it's that's going to be difficult in the same way, like especially the early mid-career people. Um, but yeah, I've been working with like these sort of small business like florists and hairstylists and like film producers and people that are not really needing to use it or haven't really been using it in their own work. So I haven't specifically encountered
Mhm.
the scenario you came up with, but it is a hot topic. It's something that I'm thinking about and keeping an eye on, and like my I don't know that my opinions will ever be like, fully resolved, at least in the near future on it.
Yeah.
But I think it's something that we need to be cautious of and conscious of, especially if you're consistently using it to bounce ideas off of, because it will just agree with you until you stop talking to it.
Yeah, I think that's a really good like just caution for people because I know that for me I've used ChatGPT a lot just as a brainstorming tool and just bouncing ideas around and trying to decide like, well, how do I want to approach this? Or, what are some different ideas that I could use around this and that and the other thing?
Mhm.
And I mean, sometimes it does come up with things that I wouldn't have thought of myself.
Yep.
So I find that valuable, but I realize that like I feel like I need to go back to some of those chat GPT conversations and say like, okay, now pretend that you are a critic of this idea and like and tell me
Right.
what's wrong with it. Um
Oh yeah, like we
yeah.
could have a whole other multi-hour long podcast about this 'cause it's it because it will just go like I think the danger is that you're creating like it's not sentient, right? Like you're giving it
Hmm.
the parameters that it's going to use. So if you're asking it to be critical, it's only going to be critical. If you're
Right.
asking it to be, and you like, you do have to just be nuanced with the prompt. It is great,
Hmm.
absolutely, for being like, what am I not thinking about
Yeah.
within this parameter? Or here's like a blog post, like, what are the main topics? Like, how would you explain this to a fifth grader? I loved using
Hmm.
it when I was working on some like really complicated technology products with the agency I was with for years to be like, here's a white paper, that's like being publicly like give it to the link to the white paper. What does this mean? Because I don't speak scientist, you know? And and that was really helpful if I was kind of trying to pull out some key themes for like creating a brand identity for these people because
Hmm.
they only speak scientist. So so that's helpful. And it's definitely helpful for gaining different perspectives and things. But I absolutely urge caution.
Yeah.
And like we were talking about earlier, like it is a bit of a creativity killer if you're coming to it with a really precious idea. It's going to kind of it can spoil it pretty quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. It's true.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I think maybe we'll have to have you back on the show just to talk about like have a whole episode just about AI because
Sure.
on the one hand, like coming at this as somebody who's focused a lot on like written materials and content creation around writing. A lot of people that are fellow travelers of me have been like, AI is going to steal our jobs. But I really think that it's more about learning how to use the tools effectively and not let the tools use you.
Absolutely.
And I think what's going to end up happening, and I might be wrong. I might come back to this in 5 years and go, oh my God, I was so off base with whatever's down the pipe for this. But I think we'll find out that, farming out your business's blog posts, for example, to, 100% AI generated stuff is going to become like the equivalent of, hiring the cheapest person on Fiverr. It's like you get what you
Yeah.
pay for, and you're going to lose that humanity and that particular touch that can only come
Well,
from us.
1000%. You're absolutely
Mhm.
right. I think that's already happening. One part of the reason why, I think it's not going to absolutely destroy the creative industry as people were kind of worried about for a few months there is because the pendulum is so quickly swung in the opposite direction.
Right.
I find, one of the markers of what makes something valuable is how accessible it is, right? And when you're able to create a digital infographic with all the points that you need, kind of laid out in a salient way that makes sense to anybody, that type of design does become not very valuable. You can get somebody to do
Yeah.
that in Fiverr, you can ask ChatGPT to do it for free. What
Hmm.
I'm seeing now is a whole return to like hand-drawn sign painting and, like really personalized branding that is or like photos that are unedited and like totally candid. And that's the kind of thing that's becoming more valuable and more of like, if you're leaning into like a luxury vibe, it looks like something that you might have seen at like pictures of like CBGBs in like the 70s. Like it's like
Hmm.
very almost grungy. So I think I always find like the sort of the foils of technology or whatever this big emerging thing is sort of where the creative trends lie, and
Yeah.
that's totally interesting. But yeah, exactly, you're right. Like it's already happening that if somebody can spot that you've used AI to do something, and I know a lot of writers in particular are like justice for the M dash, like that's supposed to be like a chat GPT, like, oh God,
Yes.
moment kind of thing. But yeah, like it's already a kind of thing where if you can spot it, then it reads as cheap. I know
Yeah.
even storefronts along I live just off of Queen Street in Toronto, like
Hmm.
storefronts with AI images are like, oh, like, it feels cheap now, or it's kind of negatively responded to, I find.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it was on your blog too that you were talking about how some of the luxury brands are now going in for like multi-sensory
Yeah.
campaigns as a way to kind of bypass the whole AI element of things. And I thought that was fascinating because, I think I mean I'm not I'm not an advertising agency person or anything like that, but I'm so used to just seeing ads now that are just, obviously very slapdash, cheaply done, and just to see that, brands that have the means to do so are like moving away from that and saying like, well, we want to give our customers or potential customers an experience. We don't just want to market and push and push and push that product.
Yeah, absolutely. And I
Mm-hmm.
think as well as being a response to AI, it's also a response to social media and like everybody having their
Yeah.
phone and there being instantly 1,000 pictures from every angle of anything, right?
Yeah.
So like, you know now if you go to a comedy club and they ask you to put your phone in the like magnetic seal bag, that there's probably going to be somebody really good coming up on stage that night. Like that's like I find that's sort of where the opposite comes in. And, these like I think it's like Loewe and probably like Miu Miu and Gucci and all these big like
Mm-hmm.
luxury brands are having um big feasts and like whole like thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars of like floral arrangements and things that are like really fleeting. And it's the people that were there, and that's what makes
Mm-hmm.
it, um, you know, rare and unattainable and luxury.
Yeah, yeah, actually I worked with a client for a while. She was actually, her name's Rahul Muharraq, and she was the first Saudi woman to climb Mount Everest.
Wow.
And so she earned her influencer cred like more, more times than I can imagine. And she would do some of these events where, there would be different companies that would just have, yeah, like these parties and these, in-person experiences that people could have and then share with their followers. And it just became, I guess, a way of, um, all like, I guess trying to have sort of viral organic marketing in a way, but like now with AI, this is taking on even more importance for people.
Totally.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Being able to sort of touch something and talk to something and
Yeah.
engage it more fully. 100%.
Yeah. I think yeah, one thing that I wanted to ask you, because I'm just being aware of the time and I don't want to keep you too long, but one of the things that I wanted to ask you about was back to the artist's way, and that one of the challenges you had was unplugging for a prolonged period of time. And, I often feel these days that we're so glued to our electronic devices, whether it's the iPad or the laptop or our gaming devices or whatever, that we're missing a lot. Like we're missing out on the world around us. And so I was just wondering how that experience with the artist way has, like, what was the most surprising thing? How has that affected you?
Oh my gosh. It's like, I really think everybody that, feels like a creative or wants to be creative, like, should experience attempting it at least once.
Mhm.
It's for better or for worse, it's a lot of like great perspectives and questions that you can kind of use to go a little bit deeper into yourself. The chapter that you're referring to is kind of infamous, I think. It's the chapter 4, Reading Deprivation Week.
Reading deprivation.
And and it was a wild week. I'm such a reader. Like I
Mhm.
read constantly and not even like I read books, but then I'm also I didn't even realize when she wrote the book, it was pre like everybody having a cell phone, pre
Yeah.
like computer in your house, um, time. And so she's like, "Yeah, you're not allowed to rent a movie this week. You can't read the newspaper, you can't read your book, you can't even go to the library." And now it's like, "Oh my gosh, the stakes are like it's like I might as well just have
Yeah.
like put like a sleep mask on for the week. Like it's impossible." And I wasn't really ultimately perfectly successful, but I attempted
Mhm.
the thing and that's what counts. And the days that I was more strict about it, I was allowing myself to kind of remember what it feels like to be bored, which I think is like
Mhm.
a really important tool for for engaging with creativity. And I think, I would actually really like to do it for longer and a bit more intentionally, because the first time I tried The Artist's Way, I don't think I even made it to chapter 4, but
Yeah.
so I didn't know what was coming. And I think I think it's such a good exercise, but ever since I did that, I've completely turned off notifications on my phone with the exception of like calls and text messages. Like I
Hmm.
still have the apps, I can still look at them, but I have to intentionally go and check. Um, and, I went for a couple weeks without reading because the concept of like over reading as um like a overindulgence or a way of like crowding your brain was kind of, handed to me for the
Hmm.
first time. And I was like, yeah, I was like the bookworm kid. Like I definitely read as a way that like, somebody else probably, you know, drinks too much coffee or like smokes cigarettes or whatever. It's like a coping mechanism. So,
Hmm.
but you don't think about that. It's like, oh, this girl eats too many carrots, she's gonna turn orange kind of thing. So yeah, I feel like it's a good opportunity for anybody to notice what it is that they're doing a lot of and ask why and maybe try going a few days without that thing, especially if it's like doom scrolling or
Yeah.
you know, whatever it is that you do. It's always an opportunity to check in on it and make sure it's serving you.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I think as a society we've become almost, I don't want to say afraid, but like we've become avoidant to just being with our own thoughts for more than a minute or two. I was just thinking about this past weekend. My family and I went to see. It was not like an actual ballet, but it was a look behind the scenes. You got to see the National Ballet of Canada's warm up
Cool.
routine, which was I thought was
Cool.
really cool. As someone who
Yeah.
used to dance, I was totally into it. I thought it was great. But I noticed that there were a lot of people in the audience who, despite what they announced at the beginning of, put your phones away, please don't take pictures, et cetera, et cetera, they couldn't stay present.
Yeah.
They couldn't they and there were a couple people near me that I just, would glance over and I could see them like almost physically struggling with like, I want to reach into my pocket and get out my
Yeah.
phone. And I have to say, even myself, I felt it at times when because we were watching like a live class in progress as opposed to a performance, curated to hold our attention. There were moments when things kind of lagged and we were trying to, just like go with this like extra slow pacing. And I found myself thinking like, oh, I wonder if so and so has gotten back to me about the thing and the that. And and I had to like kind of scold myself a little bit and say, no, you just have to stay in this moment right now and not, the messages, if they're there, will still be there in an hour. You don't have to look at them now.
Oh
But
my gosh. Yeah,
yeah.
that's so real. Or sometimes like, yeah, you'll be like one of the sort of boundaries I've set with myself is like understanding that if I look at the message, I'm then going to be thinking about the message.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like that. I'm going to clear that from my brain. But yeah, it's so hard to be comfortable being bored or just being like
Yeah.
unstimulated by your phone in particular, I guess. Like we've
Hmm.
created a lot of things that are um, whether they're intended or not, are like numbing agents
Hmm.
for our brains. Um, and I guess that kind of brings me to like one of my favorite parts of the creative process has to be um falling in love with the montage, with the like wax on,
Yeah.
wax off, like Mr. Miyagi thing. Like, you have to be able to work past that exciting chapter one into the like parts where you know what you're doing and you understand it, but now it's not new. You're just getting better at it or
Hmm.
building the foundation of a thing that's eventually going to be good. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. We need to build back our attention span and our willingness to just be uncomfortable. I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%. And every time you do that, you learn something about yourself. Like anytime you're intentionally putting yourself in a safe but out of your comfort zone like position, it's it's always going to reveal something and it's always worth it
Mhm.
to be um, you know, willing to listen for that.
Yeah. So before we get into the wrap up rapid fire questions I have to ask you to explain the concept of showing your baby teeth.
Oh my gosh. That's great. That started out as a joke with my partner and I, just because a family friend was really, really intent on trying some extremely spicy food. Um, and it's sort of turned into something that like sticks with me, and I every once in a while will be like, oh, baby teeth. We'll look at each other and be like, that person's got baby teeth. Um,
Yeah.
but it's the moment, and we all have them and we all do it, but it's any time that you're sort of reacting off the cuff in a way that like isn't particularly nuanced or isn't particularly informed about something. I think the example I use in my blog is like anybody that's like, "Oh, I like all music except for country and rap."
Right.
And it's like, well, have you heard all music? Do you know that, or is that just a thing that you think? Like, I feel like you haven't thought about this opinion that deeply, and you're excluding so much, and by saying it. And obviously, it's not a harmful thing, and nobody actually cares. But I really find that it applies to like myself when I'm like, oh, like, you know, I'm avoiding doing something because it's hard.
Yeah.
Or I'm avoiding doing something because it's scary and it's nobody's going to notice a difference whether or not I do this thing, but it's uncomfortable to lean into it. And that's where in that article I was like, oh, these are my baby teeth because I just need to like, buck up and do it. Um, But yeah, it's come up in so many ways. Oh my gosh, I was on a coaching session earlier today where it was somebody was like, "That's baby teeth," and it was.
Yeah.
Not gonna remember what it is right now. Um, yeah, it's a good concept. Just little tiny baby teeth. That's all it is.
So how would you say your clients show their baby teeth?
Oh, that's a really
Yeah.
good question. Definitely the asking for a solution is a
Hmm. Hmm.
baby teeth moment. Asking for the solution, yes. Asking for the logo to be bigger. Um, um, yeah. Let me think about that for a second. I find when what's a baby teeth thing is when they're like, "Well, I talked to my nephew and he d did something creative once and he says he prefers this one." Like
Ah, yeah.
reaching out, engaging in something other than the sort of established relationship with your designer. And obviously you can ask your nephew whatever you want, but bringing them in as like an alternative expert when you've hired somebody to engage as the expert, you're going outside of the conversation rather than including this person in it. And you're really only just, taking away from yourself if you do that. So that's maybe a baby teeth opportunity.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I think, I've certainly had this idea presented to me in the coaching work that I've done with my mentors and coaches is that, people want to like ask their opinions, whether it's their nephews or their friends or their coworkers, like they'll ask anyone else's opinions before they'll actually accept their own.
Correct.
And it seems to me, now that I've been learning more about this, it seems to me that it's comes from a place of insecurity that
Absolutely.
we value other people's opinions above our own, which is, I mean, there's certainly value in other people's opinions, but it can be a mistake.
Well, 100%. And I think you've just like touched on a huge thing, which is like, if you know what you need to do and you're asking 10 different people and hoping they'll give you the right answer and the validation to kind of lean into
Yeah.
whatever it is, like you already know what you need to do, just do the thing. Um, yeah. baby teeth right there too. And I've done it. I feel like everybody's done it,
I think so.
Yeah, it's that's like very easy to do, but yeah, it's always a good opportunity for reflection and to be like, oh, okay, this is a thing that this is the answer. It's almost like, you flip the coin and whatever kind of side you hope it lands on is probably the thing you should go with before you even find out what it is. Like you need
Yep.
to just fly with the thing that you want to do and not think about it too hard
Yeah.
the time. Yeah.
And so, speaking of things not to think about too hard, I'm going to move into the rapid fire questions.
Okay.
So, it's three people we should be following or listening to, two books that you recommend that we read, and one action step. And they don't have to be related to design, they can be related to whatever you think is most important in the moment.
Okay. We were talking about Atomic Habits. James Clear has
Mm-hmm.
an excellent newsletter. It comes out every Thursday, and he does actually a 3-2-1 in it. I think it's like three ideas, two quotes, and one idea or something like that.
Yeah.
It's excellent. I really love it. Suleika Jaouad is an incredible artist and author, and she's written two books, the second of which just came out recently. I think it's called The Book of Alchemy or The Magic of Alchemy.
Mm-hmm.
She writes a beautiful Substack. She's on podcasts. Beautiful writer. Highly recommend, especially for anybody that's creative in any way. Um, Third person, I've been following TeaDay. She's a creative from the UK. Her Instagram is TeaDay Blogs, spelled TeaDay Blogs.
Mm-hmm.
She's writing beautifully about like vulnerable creativity and like
Mm.
engaging with that on the daily. And I love following her and seeing what she's coming up
Mm-hmm.
with. She's great. Um, Two books was the next thing, right?
Yep.
Two books. I love my favorite book on writing is On Writing by Stephen King. It's excellent. I was looking earlier today for a copy to lend it out. I have multiple and they're all lent out right now because
Wow. Okay.
I love it so much. It's really well written, and it's just great, like nose to the grindstone, almost feels like going to work at like a blue collar job, but it's your
Mhm.
creative passion. Like it's really wonderfully written. And then recently I've been reading an anthology called Bad Artist. It's a
Mhm.
lot of Canadian artists, predominantly, I think, if not exclusively, um, writers, musicians, artists, and writing about their experience of burnout and creative productivity, and
Mhm.
it's excellent. I'm enjoying that a lot.
That sounds amazing. Yeah.
It came out, I want to say, towards the end of last year, maybe the beginning of this year, so it's quite
Hmm.
new. I bought my copy at Queen Books in Toronto, which is local bookstore represent. Um,
Yep.
and then, yeah, one action step, make some bad art. Take
Okay.
5 minutes and do it. It doesn't matter what it is or where it is or how you do it, but it is,
Okay.
yeah,
So
go
yeah,
for it.
I think we should challenge everyone who's listening to this that as soon as the episode is over to turn off all their electronics and for 10 minutes go and make some bad art.
I love it. Absolutely.
All right. Thank you so much, Emily. I had a blast with this conversation and I hope you'll come back. I hope we can have I think there's so many more things that we can talk about, including AI. And
Absolutely.
yeah, it's been a real pleasure.
I would love that. Thank you so much for having me, Liz. This was so much fun.
Thank you.
Thanks.